Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. We have Massimo back again on the podcast. We talk a little bit about where he went, where has he been the past 6 weeks, and what kind of led to this move. Coming out of that, we talk about personal brand and the importance of that and how it's really been an asset for both of us. Quickly switch over to the importance of focus and how you can get there. And then finally, we wrap up talking about, well, what is he focused on now? What's he working on? And potential maybe collaborations with Blue Mortgage, which of course is the product that I'm very much focused on. Feel free to join us. It's a cool conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. See you there. Truth maybe is that every time you put a document in an email, that is the most vulnerable place. Massimo, welcome back.
Holy moly, what is 6 episodes? 8 episodes? A long time.
Yeah, been a while. Lots changed, namely your face. For those watching,
Yeah.
You can see he's got a bit of a facelift there. So if you're not watching, go to our YouTube, subscribe there. We'd love to see you there. But yeah, I want to spend this episode, Massimo, just talking a little bit about kind of where you've been and what kind of has led to that decision, because I think some people are curious about it. So maybe just off the top, how you've been spending your time the past 6 weeks and what kind of led to your decision of spending a bit less time on this pod and where are you dedicating that time?
Yeah, I mean, in short, here we have another product. It's called Cloven, and I'll probably talk a little bit about that later on. But I've started focusing on something that we've actually mentioned a few times, financial advisors. We're working with financial advisors more. And I started noticing for a bunch of reasons. One, from a branding perspective, I'm trying to lean in more and focus on one particular brand. When people see Massimo, like for you, when they see Tom,
Mortgage Tech Tom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
my handle is not as, what is that even called? I don't know. It's got a certain ring. It's not an alliteration or anything, but like mine is Maslove CRM. Maslove CRM, if you go to that page, it's all about advisors and insurance and investments. And so for me to be on a podcast talking about mortgage tech can be a little confusing to the people looking for me on the insurance side. It also kind of messed with my head in my day, which I think will be a big topic here, where I kind of had to shift gears quickly into mortgage tech when 80% of the time leading into the podcast, I was thinking about other stuff as it relates to insurance. So that's where I've been. Stopped having to shift gears. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we'll get into the focus in just a second, but maybe something came up that I wanted to dig into as you're talking about there, which is personal brand. So for me and you both, personal brand has been a huge part of our strategy. It's been almost all of our marketing is really putting ourselves front and center. That way, really, when we go to trade shows, meet people, there's a lot of continuity there. And so I think that's, an important thing to maybe unpack just a little bit to say, okay, well, if we didn't do this personal brand stuff, forget about the focus side of things. Instead, if we just stuck to the brands where Blue Mortgage is the brand and that's all we talk about, and doesn't really matter who's doing the reels or who's doing the podcast because it's all under the banner of Blue Mortgage or Cloven in your case, then this would have become less of an issue. But when we start to do this personal brand, not start to, we've done it for a while now. Now, because we do this personal brand, we have this disconnect where it's Massimo on social and in a lot of places, YouTube, whatever, he is the financial advisor guy. And then he's coming on here talking a little bit about mortgages. Now, of course, you have knowledge of both. There's no, dishonesty in that. We're being honest. I think you can talk about mortgages all day, every day, and you've worked with some huge mortgage teams. But it's the continuity of how you're presenting your personal brand online and doing that. So I don't know if there's a question in all that really, but do you think it's been worth it to do that personal brand? Like if you could go back, wave a magic wand and just put everything under the Cloven banner and you could keep doing this pod and at least the marketing focus would be a little bit more clear. Like, do you think it's been worthwhile to keep it on the personal brand side?
I think so. And I wish I would have done it earlier, to be honest. So, we've been actively, I don't know, you longer than me. I've been traditionally a bit more of a generalist. You kind of jumped into the mortgage brand years ago now, but really started pumping it probably a year. Yeah. I think it's a great way to do it. I should have done it earlier. That's how kind of people buy, and people want to trust personal brands. Like if you go to either of our pages, we talk about this a lot in our videos. And even myself, when I'm going to look for advice, I want to find someone who has some validity, credibility, and their social channels better show me that, and their blog articles or whatever. Like I want to go look at creds. And so if I'm going to buy a financial advisor CRM or a mortgage CRM, I want to know that the guy talking about the CRM also doesn't have a car mechanic shop CRM and this and that. Like, I want to know that they're focused on something. And
Yeah.
I know we're trying to stay away from the focus, but the brand part creates a lot of validity and credibility. And I definitely think it's worthwhile, and all brokers should do it.
Yeah, the reason I ask because that's something that comes up, I think, a bunch where people say, "Oh, you know what? What's my brand? Is it ABC Mortgage Company or is it Tom?" Right, Tom the broker. And I think some people, toy with that a little bit because I think that with the ABC broker feels like there's a little bit more scale, right? Where I could go on vacation, Tom the broker, for a week, for a month, I don't know, and ABC brokerage would keep going. And so there's a lot of hesitation. I think my take on it is it's not just that. I think it's a lot of people are scared just to even put themselves out there. It's less scary to put a brand that could easily dissolve overnight out there in the open in the wilderness versus you and your face and your opinions. But yeah, I think that a lot of brokers debate that. And my advice to them is be a little bit vulnerable, get out there and put your face forward because, yeah, I mean, in my experience, it's been night and day. I mean, Mortgage Tech Tom has like 5 times the followers as Blue Mortgage, the page. That's just how people buy. And to the scalability point, I haven't had a ton of issues. I've taken 2, 3 week vacations. I mean, it's just more so around how you structure your team where you can still have ABC brokerage. Tom is the marketing and sales guy up front, but then you have a great team supporting you so you can, find that scalability in other parts of the business. Because the reality is that if you're doing it on social media, personal brands can scale a lot. And, the great thing about it is, that follows you forever. Just as easily as ABC brokerage can dissolve, if you're scared of it being vulnerable. Same thing in terms of the longevity, right? But if you build a personal brand for yourself, that's going to follow you your whole life. So we've stayed away from focus for a bit, but let's circle around to it again, just because I think it deserves its own time to talk about. So the other big part was, the focus. And so, yeah, a lot of people talk about that. You hear about it in the books. Okay, you got to focus. Your focus needs focus, right? That's what I've heard sometimes. And I think that's good. And I guess my question to you is before and after, right? So before, let's say, okay, you're doing a little bit of mortgage, a little bit of financial advisors. Now, after you're fully looking at, financial advisors, working with them, talking to them all day, every day. Is it true, right? Have you found a significant difference in, I guess, your productivity? I don't know even how you'd measure that, but is that accurate?
Yeah, I truthfully haven't measured my productivity on some quantifiable metric, but I'll say this, that I feel it has definitely been worthwhile. Where I've noticed the most change is in my day. So, with the focus now, I've structured my day around hitting certain people or certain brand. Like on the mortgage side, we're obviously trying to sell stuff over here. So, I'm hitting the brokerages or the heads of brokerages and reaching out to them. And I've just got like a consistent flow going. I can
Yeah.
also, in meetings, when something hits me, acronym, there's a ton of them in both industries.
Yeah.
I can go look that up. And then I can also have street cred with a lot of the other advisors. When I was kind of dabbling in both, it was harder for me to kind of remember my momentum and the acronyms and who I was talking to. Now I can go into meetings, just be like, oh, just yesterday I did this. And I talked to him and I talked to her. It's almost like the stars align a little bit,
Yeah.
where once you start getting that momentum, I mean, I'm not totally into energies and all of that stuff, but like there is something going on there where the momentum starts building. And so
Right.
just also my own clarity.
I
Going
think so.
into a
Yeah.
day, there's nothing more exhausting. I mean, you're better at it than me. I'm getting better where like you plan out your day. And when I plan out my day in the morning now, it's much easier. I don't have to be like, oh crap, there's that mortgage broker that asked me about this and oh, this advisor. And
Yeah.
it's a lot smoother. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. For me, the clarity, like I get my best ideas sometimes like in the shower,
Yeah.
where it's
Or
just like,
driving or something.
yeah, or
Yeah.
drive. Yeah, exactly. Driving. Like you talk about that energy flows and yeah, this isn't going to turn into a yoga session here, but there's something to that maybe. I was listening to Lex. I don't know if you know Lex, his
Yeah.
podcast.
Friedman,
Yeah.
right?
He
Yeah.
had a cool point, which is like, it's so cool to be working on an idea or a really hard problem and then the solution just comes to you and it's like where did that come from, right? You're just driving, no one said anything to you. It's not like it came across some screen and it's like, oh, there's the solution, great. Like where do these ideas come from? It's such a cool way, I guess, the human mind works, is that these pieces just click together randomly or I don't know what the trigger is, but it's such a cool thing. And I think you do yourself a disservice by not enabling that as best you can, right? You want to set yourself up in a situation that allows those pieces to click, almost that subconscious bringing things together. And I think, like you said, having that focus really helps with it. So, bring it back to mortgage brokers. The reason I bring this up, I want to talk to you about it because I think there's a lot of folks that I talk to that are very much so kind of in those two spots, in terms of, okay, I'm brokering right now, but then maybe I want to evolve. And now I'm thinking about maybe doing a brokerage, having a small team that I'd want to manage. Maybe I want to actually start managing some money myself, maybe set up a MIC, some sort of investment co, because, hey, I'm placing a lot of these mortgages with whomever. Maybe I should do those mortgages. I already have the pipeline. Even tech, right? Bringing it back to the mortgage tech here, we see it a lot where people build really cool tools internally and then say, hey, wouldn't the industry want this? And then turn around and try and market it. And so we hear it a lot from people we work with, people who listen to this podcast, of having a few different focuses. My question for you would be, where do you find the cutoff though, right? So I guess, to be fair, when we started this podcast, we did it together. When we started Cloven, which is the new product that you're working on, you were still very much so on mortgage side because, Cloven wasn't a full-time job. Where's that right point to find the cutoff to say, okay, I've brought this thing up. I was my side hustle for a while. When does something turn from a side hustle to a full hustle? If that's a word.
Yeah. There is a point in everything. It can be quantified by dollar value or by time that it takes during the day. I would say it's a mix of both for us or for Cloven. Like there was a point probably when it could pay for one staff member in terms of like, I would say 80 to 100 grand a year in revenue. Okay, now this is a thing. It can support someone. So that was a trigger. The other trigger I would say was just how much time it was taking me after hours or during the day. So my split started becoming more than 50% on Cloven, not on purpose. Like it was a side hustle, but we just started having more meetings and more integration chats and whatever. So those were two triggers for me, like percentage of time during the day that you're spending on something. If it gets to greater than 50, I guess. I honestly didn't think of these actual metrics ahead of time, but
I'm putting you on the spot.
yeah, that's one trigger. And then the other one is the revenue coming in. And that's like any side hustle. You listen to Hormozy and all these guys, they all talk about side hustle. It hits a certain point where when you're hitting, I don't know, 80% or 100% of your actual income, like equivalency, let's say you're making $5,000 at a job and now your side hustle is making 3 and it's got much more potential. That's when you should start thinking about shifting. So those were a couple trigger points.
Yeah. I think those are good ones. Yeah. And you can use metrics. That's a good one we always use, which is a full staff member, 80 grand, 100. And that's a cool one. The other one I think is less concrete that I have, which is, and you said it, it's a bit wishy-washy, which is like, this is a thing, right? So I think for Cloven, to use that example, and then I'll bring it back to mortgages, is like, we just had this idea. We started in early 2023 and we kind of brute forced a couple of our early customers, just, hey, get on, just like give us feedback. Like, we don't even know, we don't know. That's not a thing yet. I think it became a thing when we would like get random people finding us online and just buying. And it's like, you didn't talk to anyone. You didn't talk to any of these early customers that we dragged on and now they're dragging you on. It's like, this is a real thing. We found that almost product market fit, right? I think that was it. And so, to bring it back to mortgages, I think it's something similar very much. So if you are thinking about doing a product side of things, I think if it is more on, the mortgage co-side of things, whether it's a brokerage or maybe an investment operation that you're trying to set up, let the market tell you, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this brokerage. I don't know. I had this idea. I floated it with some people and I have a waiting list of 20 people or 10 people or 5 people or whatever, right? People want to either give me money or join my brokerage, my group. Let the market tell you when it's quote unquote a thing. It's the best litmus test for sure. And my only kind of point in all that is it's probably sooner than you think, right? I think that you always look back at these types of things and saying, oh, I wish I was, fully focused much sooner. So that's how I would kind of take it.
Yeah. I mean, just on this focus point to give you like, this could be a cool analogy that I think brokers would relate to just in our business cycle from the beginning. It's like when this business first started, there was really no focus. It was, we'll help anyone with CRMs and you pay us by the hour. Right. Yeah. And then a few years in, there was more focus where it's like, we don't do everything now. We don't do custom integrations and all that. We just do basic setups. Like we went to that CRM phase basically when you, right? Yeah. And so we focused down. And then we got even more focused where it's like, we don't do everything. We don't even do basic CRM setups. We just do mortgage. And now we also do the advisor. But that focus brought our revenue from X to I don't know, 8, 10x, some crazy amount where like we were really able to grow. So for the mortgage broker, like the riches or in the niches or the focus or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like if you're kind of taking any mortgage that walks through the door, that's no focus. Now you're focusing down just to, I don't know, first time home buyers or new immigrants or something. Then you're focusing down just onto a specific product line or something like that, right? Like it allows you to really expand. And then if you add on a personal brand on top of that, those people are searching for a new immigrant or first time home buyer stuff,
Yeah.
and they're searching online. And if they see that personal brand, now it just lights on fire. And that's what we've done with Blue Mortgage. Like it started very broad. We were lucky enough to get a couple mortgage brokers, like you said, that were early adopters that could really punch it and let us know how it was. And then took us a long time to figure
Yeah.
out that we should focus. Cloven, it took us less, but
Yeah, it is always sooner than you think.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe another thing holding people back with the focus is I want both. I don't want to take on the cost of maybe whatever hiring someone to help me with both. I can take on both and very focused on that. But yeah, when you can focus down and allow yourself to scale, you find very quickly that your most valuable asset is your time. Right. And I think it's one of the very few things that you can't buy back. You can never get the time that you have. All of us listening, all of us are always getting a bit older every second. So, and that's time you'll never get back. And so that is the most valuable asset. And people who find that out realize that. And, it then becomes a pretty quick no brainer, I think, to kind of find that focus. So, yeah, I guess bringing it back. So if someone's listening and saying, okay, yeah, I was thinking about doing a brokerage, or I've kind of started that. And I kind of agree with you guys listening. Okay, I'm not fully there, but how would I even go about doing this? Like, I run into businesses here and it's going pretty fine. Some days I feel completely fried. I do kind of long for that focus, but I can't get it. Like, how am I supposed to even get there? What would you say to someone like that?
this has been the hardest part for me, but
Yeah.
saying no to stuff,
Yeah.
that's a
Right.
big step that you have to take. And as a business owner, that was hard for me. The second step is really having control on your day, like controlling your calendar. I found time blocking really helped me with focus. I've still got room to improve, but those are two steps that I use. And the no, you will be surprised, A, how much people respect that you're saying no. And even if you say no to a client, but you tell them where they could go, that's still a win. They'll probably send you business that is in your wheelhouse
Yeah.
one day, or at least respect you because you didn't bring them down a road that you don't really want to go down anyways. And so, yeah, those are the two that come to mind for
Right.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. To the last point, I was talking to Jeff last week on this podcast about it. And
Okay.
yeah, he was saying not this specific thing, but the point we were making is that if you give value out in the world, you might not get a dollar for it at that instant, but it comes around. It almost always does, and many times over. So completely agree with that. And I think those are great tips on the personal side to find that focus. Yeah. I mean, I think the most dangerous thing to your focus is your inbox. It's one of these things.
Yeah.
I think
True.
brokers spend all day, every day. I still spend a lot of time more than I'd like on the inbox, but it's one of these crazy things where it's like, imagine no inboxes existed for a second. You were just sitting at your desk and like anybody ever could just come up and just start asking you questions. It would be ridiculous, but it's kind of what an inbox is, right? Anybody can email you and it's going to come to the top and you're going to get a ping and you're going to get distracted. So try to get away from that inbox. The other thing too, I'd say, and honestly, this is something that we've always struggled with Blue Mortgage. We're getting much better at it, is just having good team members too. Being able to let go, that's a tough thing. Again, something that I can say for myself, struggle with, a bit of a perfectionist. But again, it's kind of like one of these things about, okay, finding focus, when we have brought people in. So we have someone on our team named Mariah, and she started doing Blue Mortgage demos for us maybe 2 years ago now. Till then, for 3 years, I was doing all the demos. We were like, why didn't we do this before? Right.
Yeah.
But there was that control. I was like, oh no, I got to do it. Only I know how to do the demo perfectly. Right. I'm the personal brand. Right. But you figure it out and, you can do those types of transitions. And I think that's it. Bring people in sooner, smart people. I think that's, of course, important people who can problem solve. That's the number one skill that you need is problem solvers. But if you can bring in problem solvers, I mean, as the name suggests, they can really get out there and tackle anything that's thrown at them.
Yeah. I think you'll see more and more with newer generations. I'm actually doing a presentation for Cloven on this type of stuff. And if you say I do it all, at least myself and many people I talk to, you're just like, oh boy, a master of none here. And so
yeah, more so maybe, right?
Yeah. So people do value specialists. And you look at anyone who gets to the top of their game in anything like sports. It's not like one player plays 3 sports. Michael Jordan tried and failed. I
Yeah.
guess he failed. I think he failed. He didn't
Yeah,
do
I don't
well
know.
at baseball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like when you get good at one craft, you can rise to the top, or one focused. And even in sports, we relate to sports a lot here. It's like you're not the best at defense and offense in hockey or in basketball or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
you're a star at one position and you're focused
And they
on
can
that.
complement each other,
Yeah.
right? Like, of course, yeah, whatever. The point guard's going to out to the center. That's the only
Yeah,
other
maybe go to
position I know.
hockey. Yeah.
They're going to play off each other,
Yeah.
but they have different skills. And yeah, I mean, someone who's, again, I was chatting with Jeff about this last week. So part of the reason I wanted to talk to you about it was he has kind of a tech product that he's been in that category of, he's a broker and that's his main focus, but he's had this kind of side tool that he's used for his own business. But before kind of going nationwide, well, and I don't know if he will go, this is just the conversation we're having. He's saying we need to bring someone in. And I think, that's a good mindset. And so, yeah, he understands that he is a forward, whatever. And so he is going to focus on forward, which is brokering, whatever. And he needs to bring in a defenseman to do this other thing. And even if he was maybe even a pretty good defenseman too, you can't play 2 positions.
Yeah.
Well, maybe to wrap up, Mass, for those of you curious about this Cloven product, and I know a lot of brokers out there listening probably work with a lot of advisors right now. I mean, it's one of the top referral sources, one of my favorites. I actually have been thinking about this recently where, realtors, and I've been hearing it from some people. Realtors are great, of course, nothing against them, but they have a very different type of clientele than a financial advisor, right? It's a little bit less qualified. Anybody kind of can see a TikTok reel and say, hey, yeah, I'd like to maybe pursue that. And they become a client of a realtor. Whereas for an advisor, it's a bit more of a commitment. They build a lasting relationship. And so that by the time they hand off to a mortgage broker, they're extremely, extremely qualified. There's someone who are quite trusted. They know is going to be a pretty good lead. And, that's some of the stats and stuff I've been looking at is, these financial advisor referral partners, I should say, have a much better conversion rate. They might not be as high volume, but the conversion rate kind of comes through. And so long way of saying, I know a lot of folks listening are working with advisors. Maybe some of them are actively looking to work with more. But I guess maybe talk a little bit about, the product and how it's doing. And yeah.
So the product is a CRM product. It's like Tom said, for financial advisors. We deal with guys of all shapes and sizes, but from what we can tell, it's usually teams managing life insurance, managing investments and wealth. And as Tom said, they're usually signing up clients for decades or like a long time. A client
or
will come
like
to
generations,
them.
right? It's like estate planning.
It's like, okay, I got $100,000. Need you to invest this well for me. That 100 turns into millions over 50 years. And then the kids inherit it and they help them do estates and tax planning and all that.
Shelter it and this and that.
And so real estate becomes part of that equation, obviously. And so they are linked to mortgage brokers. Often they get leads from mortgage brokers because when you purchase a home, you often think about life insurance and how to protect this debt and all that. So the product is similar to Blue Mortgage. If any of you are listening, use Blue Mortgage. It helps them manage their leads. It helps them manage the policy from start to being enforced. It also helps them manage all the investments and be able to run reports on when trigger dates like RSP top-ups or TFSA top-ups, things like that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're learning. It's kind of in the early stages of Blue Mortgage. Tom can speak to these. We're adding in new fields almost on a bi-weekly basis and like talking to people, being like, okay, what would you do? And so it's a very dynamic time right now, but a lot of similarities. I mean, they're a broker just like a mortgage broker, right? They're a middle in between a carrier and a client instead of a bank and a client. But yeah.
Well, I think that's just it, right? I think we took some of the lessons from the Blue Mortgage side and we said, well, yeah, the dynamic is different, but similar. Instead of a lender, you have a carrier. Instead of a brokerage, it's an MGA or some of these investment firms, but there's those similarities there. And so for us, we knew the need existed and we also kind of knew the product where it needed to be. So there's some similarities there, of course. Yeah, it's been cool for us at least. And I've only kind of seen it through you a little bit, is just to kind of get a view into that world. It's a new world, but I do think there's some overlap with mortgages, quite a bit actually, more than I thought. Because for a lot of these folks, once you get to a certain wealth point, real estate is almost like a mandatory part of the equation, right? It's like you get to X and once you're past X, you're buying real estate, no questions asked, right? So it's cool to see that and understand that. And I guess maybe to wrap up, Mass, we can say, okay, well, for anyone listening and interested in either product or using either product, is there ever going to be a crossover, some sort of link between the two? Blue Mortgage to, what would it be? Maybe, I don't know, an advisor's using Cloven and they can click a button and send a lead to Blue Mortgage or vice versa, something like that. And are we going to ever get something like that, you think?
Yeah, that's a good a good setup.
I
We're
Yeah.
laughing because we've
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah,
In
we've talked about
short,
this a bunch. Yeah.
yeah, that is a play. And
Yeah.
I mean, people feel free to comment. There may be a play one day where you can pass leads back and forth, you can pass client information back and forth, all compliant and all that stuff. But that is something that people have asked for a while, whether it be a marketplace or just sharing of data or handoff of data. So yeah, we need critical mass in both products. And so there might be a time. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Of course, it's tough. I think the compliance thing is a major hurdle for us. It's the critical mass side of things. I think Cloven kind of needs to get there for it to make sense. But I think also it's like, how much value is there? How many leads does an advisor send a mortgage broker in a given month? Let's say like one, two, I don't know,
It's
right?
not
So
high. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's so high there. But if it's a super lightweight feature that saves you, well, I don't know, what would it be, 10 minutes a month? Is it worth it? I don't know, right? I guess that's part of going back to, I don't know, we talked about earlier, is letting the market decide, right?
Yeah.
So before we go in and make this a thing and over engineer it, we'll let the market decide. So if anyone's interested, here's actually the plug where we'll leave it at, is we can do that manually right now. So we can set up basically a Zap. If people know Zapier, we can zap from one CRM to another. So if that's interesting to you, we'll set up the Zap for you in your CRM. And if we get 100 zaps set up, maybe that's a sign that this is a thing, and then we'll have to hire a new person.
I was just going to say, like, you could be involved in our potential focus journey. Critical mass, taking up a bunch of our day, enough clients. Okay, new person in there to manage that product, whatever it is. But we still got to determine if it's actually valuable. It sounds interesting to Tom and I in our office on the whiteboard behind him there, but we don't really know if the market cares. So we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, thanks, Mass.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.